What's going on, everyone? It's another episode of the WVSports.com podcast. I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by always as the one and only Keenan Cummings. It is our first episode in a couple of weeks, but a lot has happened in that time span. It is currently Sunday, January 12th, and the West Virginia University men's basketball team just came off a tough and gritty win on the road over Colorado, a bounce-back win after they just didn't really have their game on Tuesday against Arizona. Mountaineers are now 3-1 in Big 12 play. So we're going to lead with that before getting into a lot of football talk. So Keenan, through 4 games, West Virginia is 3-1 in conference play. They now have a tough week ahead, traveling to Houston before returning home against Iowa State. But let's talk about the Colorado game today specifically. It was a first half in which West Virginia kind of just controlled the whole way. Javon Small then took over early in the second half, and you thought this thing was going to just kind of coast to a West Virginia victory until the whistle would blow and not stop blowing like the wind. So Colorado ended up in the second half. They went 24-28 from the free throw line. They got back into the game, but the Mountaineers never gave up their lead, and they were able to get it done on the road. So, Keno, 3-1 Big 12 play, another win on the road. What are your thoughts of this one?
Yeah, I think the road part of that is the most impressive part. This West Virginia basketball program the last few years, I think they had 2 Big 12 road wins in each of the last couple of years. They have 2 in 2 tries.
2 in the last 3 years, I believe it was.
Yeah, they have two in 2 in 2 tries this season, and not an easy place to win at Kansas, obviously. And this was a really important game for West Virginia. Colorado is struggling. They kind of really had to remake their entire roster after they had a really good year last year. And this was a game West Virginia needed to get. I mean, you can just look ahead on the schedule. What's next? Going to Houston, one of the undefeated teams in the league. In league play, at least. Iowa State, undefeated in league play at home. It's a rough schedule. You're not going to get much tougher than that. So you avoid possibly, if in worst case scenario, you're sitting there at 2-4 or whatever it would be. So you were able to go on the road and win. And this game was a weird game for a lot of reasons. I thought the first half was fine. I thought it had good flow. The second half was almost an entirely different ball game. I'm not one to really harp on the officials too much, but this game was nuts. Colorado at one point was trailing by 9 points. They went almost 7 minutes, 6 minutes and 58 seconds without making a field goal and cut the lead to 2. That kind of tells you how the whistle was going in this game. And I felt like it was a different game on each end of the floor. Now, things kind of evened out a little bit when Colorado had to foul late, but and some of that also was a product of West Virginia taking some jump shots and some threes at certain points in the second half, but really weird game. And I think this team, again, it's been a trademark, from the start, showed a lot of resiliency, a lot of toughness, and found a way to win this game. There was a lot of people you can point to in this game. I think we almost take for granted what Javon Small does on a nightly basis. He plays almost every minute in every game, scores in the upper 20s most games, and today he was fantastic. I don't even think it was his best game per se. I don't even know if I'd put it in his top 5 this year, and that just speaks to how well he's played. He had 26 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, only 1 turnover, and he played 38 minutes, Wes. 38. Joe Yesufu, again, West Virginia's got guys that have stepped up and found ways to help this team win. There's been injuries, guys out for whatever reason, and other people are just stepping up. You had 18 points, really made some critical plays in this game. I felt in the second half, West Virginia's offense was struggling. It seems like they go through a patch every game like this where they're passing the ball around the perimeter, the shot clock's running out, and somebody takes a tough contested shot. It really does seem to be something that plays out. Darren DeVries has talked about this as well. They bogged down at times, but when West Virginia needed baskets late in this game, it was Yesufu. He was able to get to the rim a couple times, hit a couple big jumpers, really kept Colorado at enough of a distance that West Virginia could put the thing away, although they tried their hardest to make it interesting down the stretch. I just think that this is an impressive win. Just after what happened at Arizona, how bad this team looked. And I think now we've gotten a pretty good indication of, what this team is in a sense. If they get knocked around, you saw it after the Pitt game. They bounced back, played really well. They got knocked around against Arizona, which, by the way, we're not giving Arizona enough credit. That team is nothing like the team West Virginia played in November. They are playing really good basketball right now. But West Virginia's caught a buzzsaw on that one. I mean, they're playing really well. But, yeah, they kind of just get knocked around in that game and come back and find a way to win on the road. So, overall, it's been really strong. Like, when you look at the contribution, Eduardo Andre has been a different player since he's been in the starting lineup. Now, he was giving West Virginia some productive minutes, but, he's been really good rolling to the rim and finishing on the defensive end, blocks, steals. He just keeps doing things. And Jonathan Powell hits a couple big shots every game. You'd like to see it be a little bit more consistent, but that's going to happen with freshmen. You're going to have guys that go up and down. But I'm just really impressed the ways that DeVries is finding ways to win games right now. They only played 8 guys tonight. One of them was a walk-on. A lot of guys played a lot of minutes. You're without arguably your best player. I mean, Javon Small might be anyways, but Tucker DeVries is out. Jaden Stone still hasn't played this year. KJ Tenner isn't playing. Money Hansberry has a hurt ankle, but he's playing, and you're still finding ways to win. And I think that's a testament to the job that this coaching staff has done, and the players buying in on this, next man up, no excuses mentality.
Add into that, you're playing at altitude. You're playing in a place that you never really play. Colorado's going 10 or so deep on their bench, and they're pressing you kind of almost full court every time in the second half that you're inbounding the ball. And you've got 2 guys that foul out, and both your bigs were in foul trouble from the opening 5 minutes of the game. So just all in all, it's an impressive team win. I just think that you're seeing the recipe or the path to victory kind of display itself throughout these things. West Virginia has to make these things ugly. There's going to be more games, I think, like this one where the opposition just gets to the free throw line at will just because of how West Virginia wants to do things defensively. And that is kind of a byproduct of how they play. But in the same sense that they were still able to shut down Colorado offensively. Colorado, they went on that run early on in the game from 3, and then they finished the game 6 of 19 from 3. In the second half, they went 1 of 5 from deep. So that was good on the Mountaineers, but then just able to do things with different guys in different spots. Javon Small, it's weird. You can count him for 20 points a game. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, he scored 26 or more for the 5th time this season.
I think we're just taking it for granted at this point.
I think we are too. It's it's a given, which is crazy to think. And then
I'm not trying to interrupt you, Wes, but
no, go ahead.
Just the fact that the guy has the ball in his hands almost the whole game. They're asking so much out of him. And I think the thing that impresses me the most isn't the scoring and the assist. His just feel and control of the game. He has a natural ability, and he makes hard things look really easy. And you see it. Sometimes it's not even, he had a pass in the first half to Jonathan Powell, one of the only ones Powell missed in the first half, but it was incredible. And it doesn't even go in the stat book because he missed the shot, but he just makes really tough plays look easy. And that step back is deadly.
Yeah, the run of threes he went on, I mean, we've seen that a bunch now, but as you say, it's the things that decide wins versus losses. It's going after rebounds. There's some times that you see Andre or Hansberry there reaching for the rebound, and then boom, Javon Small just pops out of nowhere and gets the rebound. And he's guarding the opposing point guard. It's not like he's taking possessions off. He plays every single possession. I thought Sincere Harris kind of gave you good minutes. He's been starting to do a little bit more on the offensive end as of late. I know he didn't make a 3 tonight, but he made a couple clutch buckets there at the rim that really kind of settled things down.
That foul call on him, man. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and then, I mean, a struggle from Toby Okani, 2 points, 0 of 5 at the free throw line, but I think he made up for all of that with that big offensive rebound there late. So good on him for kind of just being able to keep pressing, keep pushing, and get that board because that went a long way. So things like that, Keenan, is what we're seeing from this team. It's just guys stepping up in unconventional ways and getting the job done.
Yeah, and you mentioned Okani. He's not going to be a guy that necessarily is going to score a bunch of points every night, but he's so critical to what they do. And it speaks back to my general point earlier about all the pieces working together. Darren DeVries talked a lot about, building a roster and making it make sense and finding the guys to do certain things. And Oconee does a ton of stuff that isn't necessarily as easy as just, he scored X amount of points. He was plus 15, and the plus minus is a little finicky at times. He led the team.
Yeah.
He led the team. That tells you right there that when he was on the floor, West Virginia was playing well. I understand there's some things to go with that, but I do think that, having a guy like that and his versatility defensively as well, this is a really good defensive team. Now, I think they're going to struggle on some nights, especially with this short bench right now when the game is called the way it was tonight. But if they're allowed to play a little bit, they're tough to score on at times. Now, I thought Colorado really settled in at times in the second half, especially early in the second half. They played really, really well offensively. But then West Virginia was able to kind of get control, and then you had that big drought where they still cut into the lead somehow. But overall, it was a solid effort for West Virginia. This is exactly what you wanted to see. It's tough to win on the road. I know it's cliche, but it is. It's tough to win on the road in this league. You'll take them any way you can get them. And starting off 2-0 on the road for West Virginia is really, really good in a year that a lot of people expected to kind of be a rebuilding year in a sense.
Yeah, and this is the third time as well that this team's responded well after a loss. I know that the first loss, they kind of, after Pitt, they got that win over Iona, but then they went to the Bahamas and had a really good game against Gonzaga. And then the day after Gonzaga, they suffered the loss to Louisville, and they respond right there with the win over Arizona. And then now their third loss of the year last Tuesday against Arizona, and they get it done on the road against Colorado. So you're seeing a kind of top-down approach here of, we are going to focus on our opponent. We're going to do everything we can to win the game. And the responses after these losses for a team that's full of young guys, that besides Javon Small and Toby Oconee, like there is a lot of youth on this team. To see them be able to kind of flush these losses and kind of just move on, that's something that stood out to me as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we kind of buried the lead here a little bit. West Virginia's ranked again.
Yeah,
they're ranked.
It might drop out tomorrow. We'll see. But
we'll see. But they were back in the polls, and I think that deserves a lot of credit because nobody out there, I don't care who you are, other than if you're in the West Virginia locker room, you did not have this team ranked at this point of the season.
Yeah, and going back to your point about defense, I just pulled up where the Mountaineers rank in the Big 12. They are third in opponent field goal percentage, and they are second in opponent 3-point field goal percentage.
That tracks.
And as far as opponent turnovers, they are seventh at 13.8 per game. So they're really making life hard, and they're not doing it by turning you over, Keenan. They're doing it by playing good, solid half-court defense, by just doing the correct fundamental and technique things like that you're taught to do at a young age in this game, and they're playing hard. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that fans want to see this team play hard. We know that from the football aspect, from the basketball aspect. That's just a West Virginia trait, and this team has that.
Yeah, they do a really good job not letting people get to the rim, and then they close out really well. That's a good combination. So I think that it's really fun to watch because, we've seen some of that overextended defense in the past, but it's fun to watch on both ends of the floor. I think that it's a good brand of basketball, and it's exciting. And really, I think you got to give DeVries a lot of credit. He's coaching really well right now. He has not made any excuses at all. That's not just the T-shirt he wears. He doesn't talk. He could easily talk about not having.
He didn't say the word ref once tonight. After on his radio hit after the game.
If he didn't get a technical foul in some of the games earlier this year, I don't know if the guy ever will, because I think he just controls what he can control. And I know that's easy to say, but it's hard to do in practice. And so far, I've been really impressed with how he just keeps his team motivated, keeps them trucking along. They're not always going to – he admitted this, in preseason. They're going to have some rough nights in this league. It's the nature of this league. Kansas had a rough night, to open league play. Everybody's going to have some rough nights, but what they've been able to do so far is really impressive. And I'm excited to kind of see how this week goes. I think if you can get one of two.
If you get one, that's a win. And I think even if you go 0-2, that's okay as well.
Yeah, it's okay. You're going against two of the best teams in the league. If you can get one of two this week, though, man, you're getting real close to, I don't want to say punching your ticket because you got to win a couple more games, but you're going to have you're going to have a resume that would compare to probably any bubble team out there if it gets to that point. But
correct.
Hey, we don't have to hope and wish right now. You can still stay greedy because West Virginia's 12-3. So
hey, and Keenan, they're 12-3, and they have the worst rebounding margin in the Big 12. Like that these are things that just it's crazy how good their defense is with how poor they have been on the glass this year. And it just goes to show you the coaching, the effort, the intensity that they bring. Like it's just all there right now. And I'm excited, man. I think this week we will learn some things about this team. You just wish it like they were had their full roster of guys, because then things might really get interesting. But I'm excited to see how this team does.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big what if none of these guys come back. What could have happened, but it's a testament to kind of what DeVries is preaching and practicing, that they're still getting it done.
I also think – go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's simple as that. I mean, they're finding ways to mix and match this lineup and put guys in position for success, and that's good coaching.
And DeVries should be working himself into the Big 12 Coach of the Year conversation, no doubt about it. So let's transition a little bit to football. There's been a lot of action on the football front. As if you follow Keenan Cummings at Rivals Keenan on Twitter, you have seen it and seen it firsthand. I mean, first off, hat tip to you, Keenan, because I know you've been busting your butt this week as I've kind of been moving from home to back to school here. So I appreciate you. I know all of our watchers, listeners, readers appreciate you. So where do you want to begin? We'll let you take this kind of the lead here.
Well, I'll say this. We haven't done a podcast for a while, probably because I haven't done anything but write. That's all I've been doing. I've got up a few times every now and then, but I've been writing a lot the past couple days, weeks.
Well, it helps when you're snowed in, right?
Yes, it does. It's starting to thaw here a little bit, so that's good. But I think that this has been nuts, man. If we can start with recruiting here, just because it's kind of where my mind is at the moment. West Virginia's added 25 if you want to count a walk-on, new additions to the program since Rich Rodriguez took over. 12 in the last 4 days. That's insane. West Virginia only added, I think, 14 last year total transfers. They added 12 or something the year before. I mean, I've
got your numbers pulled up from your post. So you said 13 in 2024, 14 in 2023, 7 in 2022, and 8 in 2021.
Yeah, so West Virginia's almost surpassed all of those totals in the last 4 days. And you knew this was going to be part of the process. I mean, if you're paying attention, if you're following along, we've said this from day one. I think Rodriguez made it pretty clear. He wasn't going to beg people to stay, and he was going to go find guys that can play and fit his system. And that's what they're doing. They've added a ton. I mean, they've completely remade the defensive back rooms, safeties and corners. Wide receiver room looks completely different. They're starting on offensive line now. They've added 3 guys there. There's so many guys here that I would almost have to look at a list to go through them all. And fortunately, if you're not familiar, you should probably become familiar with our transfer portal tracker. It kind of outlines everybody that West Virginia has added. Also, the guys that were with West Virginia's program, where they've ended up, or guys that are still in the transfer portal. But this week alone, we'll kind of focus on that right now because we could go since the dead period opened up. How about that? That's fair. West Virginia's added quite a few commitments. Texas A&M quarterback Jalen Henderson, he started at Fresno State. He's a guy that has 2 years left. He played the most in 2023 with the Aggies. He had a pretty good run there when he was able to play. He completed, I think it was 53 for 78 passes for 715.
Another lefty too.
Yes, 715 yards and 6 touchdowns. Also can run the ball. Had 104 yards and 2 scores. I think he's going to be a challenger, for the position, but who knows how that's going to turn out. They've added a couple running backs. LJ Turner from the Division II level. He's a guy that really had a fantastic season last year. It was like 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns. He averaged 7 yards per carry. He was an All-American. And Ty Edwards is another guy they added in the running back room. He is from Northern Iowa. Huge, absolutely huge running back. Think C.J. Donaldson, but bigger and faster.
6'4", 230 is what
6'4",
he's listed out on the
230.
site. Yep.
He had 1,000 yards, 1,000+ yards last year, 6 touchdowns, also can catch the ball. He's a Florida native. He's kind of traversed an interesting path so far. He was at Texas San Antonio. He's Hutchinson, the junior college, also at Georgia Military College. So he's bounced around a little bit. But the defensive backfield, they have really, really, really hit hard over the last couple days. I think they've added 7, because I think Scruggs was already in the fold from South Alabama. So there's UT Chattanooga safety Jordan Walker, Jacksonville State. I'm trying to do this off memory here. Jacksonville State safety Fred Perry, Jacksonville State cornerback Derek Carter, Nevada cornerback Michael Coates, Akron quarterback Devontae Golden Nelson, and I'm leaving Washington safety Justin Harrington, and the last one I believe they added.
I got one in front of my face. If you want me to
William
say
Davis.
The name. Yep, there you go. Boom.
From Virginia Union, and all those guys have a lot of experience. Every single guy I just named has played a lot of football in their career. The only exception that you can kind of argue against would be Harrington, but he was a top junior college prospect. He's one of the top junior college safeties in the country. He spent 3 years at Oklahoma. He was a starter there in 2023 and played the best football of his career over the first 2 games of the season before he got a season-ending injury. But everybody else that I named has played close to 1,000, if not 1,000 career snaps. So a lot of experience, a lot of guys coming in out of that group. I don't like the tier guys because you never really know, but Michael Coates is a really, really, really big addition for West Virginia. He was a first-team All-Mountain West player last year. He had 41 tackles. I think it was 4 interceptions, and his coverage numbers were absolutely elite. I think he graded out by Pro Football Focus in the 80s, 85, or maybe even higher. Really, really good player, and West Virginia was able to get him on campus and seal his commitment. Also, Golden Nelson has played a lot. Fred Perry was with Rich Rodriguez at Jacksonville State. Really, really productive player.
He was one of those names we kind of targeted when you were thinking of who might follow Rich to WVU. He was one of those names, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that kind of got brought up early.
Oh yeah, he's a guy that I thought that they would have added the first go around, with Bowie and the tight end Jacob Barrick. But he has 257 tackles, 18 tackles for loss, like 6 forced fumbles, 3 sacks. He's been a 3-year player there. He was a freshman All-American. I got 110 tackles this past year. So really productive player and is around the ball a lot. I think he'll be kind of a box safety for West Virginia. They'll be able to do some different things with him. William Davis kind of went under the radar a little bit from Virginia Union, but he's another one of those kind of jackknife type of guys that you can move around and play a lot of different places. He stuffed the stat sheet too. I think he had like 120 tackles and 9 interceptions and 4 sacks. So he's played everywhere. And the last guy I want to kind of hit, the last couple guys I want to hit on here in my recruit ramble, I guess is what excuse me. It's been a long time and not much sleep with all this going on. So bear with me. I do think that it was critical for West Virginia to add some offensive linemen, especially Robbie Martin, not necessarily for this coming year, but in the future. He's a guy that West Virginia recruited really hard when he was at Huntington. He was an all-state player, almost flipped to West Virginia. A lot of people don't know this, but he almost flipped to West Virginia late during the early signing period last year, but ended up sticking with North Carolina State. He was a guy that I told our message board, I would not be surprised in the slightest if he comes back around. He came back around. West Virginia was able to get it done this time. He's got all 4 years left. So I think that's a plus addition. They added a really good wide receiver and another one of those names that we had talked about or expected at least in Cam Vaughn. He was Jacksonville State's leading wide receiver last year, 49 catches, 804 yards, and 5 scores. Big, tall receiver, runs well. He's a guy that he started his career at quarterback, but made the move to wide receiver at the end of his redshirt year and kind of took over there as a redshirt freshman and really was their best player. He's got 3 years left. Also, 2 defensive additions that even surprised me. I wasn't even aware that, they were on campus or West Virginia was showing them interest. Chase Wilson, linebacker from Colorado State, really, really experienced guy. I think he has like 230 some tackles, career tackles, 9 passes defended, 6 sacks, played a lot. He's been really productive for the most part, 107 tackles, and in 1 year, I think it was 98 this past year. So he's played well for them, and I think that West Virginia needed to add some more linebackers. Obviously, they lost Josiah Trotter and Trey Lathan, and then the last one on the list, at least for now, is Braden Sitters from Wyoming. That one was a complete surprise. He had actually committed to Arizona and looked like he was going to be going there, but must have come in for an official visit and flipped his commitment. He's a guy that played 3 years. He was at Wyoming for 4 years, started 26 of 33 games, and he's done a lot in that time. 91 tackles, 14 sacks, and really gives West Virginia another option on the defensive front. Like, you're noticing they're adding guys pretty much at every spot at this point. And I think that's a good thing for this team because there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of things open for grabs, and you're seeing a lot of one-year guys. Most of these guys that West Virginia is adding are one-year guys. There's a few guys, I mentioned Cam Vaughn and Robbie Martin. There's a couple of them that have multiple years remaining, but the bulk of them are one-year guys. So I think it's a strategy by West Virginia. Try to get some guys that are hungry and wanting to make the most of their college career. You heard Neil Brown say that all the time when he was here. Guys get to their last year and they kind of realize this is it, and they got to play hard. So overall, it's been pretty nuts in terms of additions, and there could be more coming in the coming days. I'm not counting anything out. We were trying to have a party to watch a movie with my daughters the other night, and had to stop it twice because West Virginia.
What movie?
Wicked.
Okay.
Yeah, they're into it. A lot of singing, but they're into it. But yeah, I had to stop it twice to cover commitments, so it's been a lot. And then I guess the last thing I'll mention here is West Virginia did add a junior college player as well, Walker from Butler CC. He is a big receiver. He started his career at Vanderbilt, Davion Walker, and I think he had some 331 receiving yards last year. He tells me he has 4 years of eligibility left, but I don't know how that works out. I'm saying 2, but we'll see.
Maybe it's 3. No,
maybe it might be. I mean, it's hard to figure it out anymore with all the changes and
especially
COVID
with what might be coming down the pipe.
I'm fully expecting at this point, for anybody that's paying attention, to eventually there be a blanket waiver that just says junior college doesn't count towards your eligibility. I'm fully expecting that. Now, whether that happens, we'll see. But at this point, I think the formula is there. If something happens to you, sue the NCAA, you'll get an injunction granted, and then they'll offer a blanket waiver.
Man, shout out Raekwon Battle right now. But in all seriousness, a question that I know was posed on the board that I think you, myself, and Vernon all kind of chimed in on was this kind of reluctancy to trust this staff based off of how the hit rate was for the last staff was on transfers. So just kind of my opinion first, then you go here, Keenan. I think it's kind of just like you got to wipe the slate clean and realize that it's a whole new group of people in the building. And we'll get to the coaching staff where you can kind of understand that in a second, but it is totally different as far as development, as far as IDing potential prospects, recruits. And I think that no matter where they come from, you have to trust this staff until they prove to not be trusted. And I think that everyone wants to see these big splash. Oh, go get the top guys. Go get the top guys. There's only so much money to go around, only so much playing time to go around. And when you're in a spot like West Virginia where you're not trying to just fill, you're like legit reloading your entire roster, you can't go out and get every top end guy that you might get if you only need to fill a few spots here and there. And so you have to dip into the JUCO ranks, the FCS ranks, the group of 5 ranks. You can't just go get all these power 4 guys. So I think it's kind of dumb and silly for people not to trust the staff until they give you a reason not to trust them.
And I think the biggest misconception that people have with the transfer portal is there are some guys that leave from the Power 4 level, Power 5, whatever you want to call it, that have starting experience and want to go elsewhere. There are several of them. They usually are already spoken for. They kind of know where they're going as soon as they enter. Look at Beck the other day. What was he in the portal for 2 hours before he committed to Miami?
Well, yeah, his girlfriend just pulled the strings and got it done.
With a no contact tag. That's not isolated. Most of these guys that do that know where they're going. Some of the best players you're going to get are those high-level group of 5 FCS players. And it's not just a West Virginia thing. Ohio State's taking them. Mississippi's taking them. And Mississippi's always in the transfer portal. That's what you want to do. You're not going to get 25 guys from Power 5 because, truthfully, there aren't 25 guys out there that West Virginia is going to get that are going to help. Just because you played at a Power 5 school does not mean that you're going to be a better option than a guy.
Because look at how many guys that are leaving WVU that have not found a home.
Oh, exactly. And no one cares that they're leaving.
For your argument. Exactly.
No one cares that they're leaving. I think that guys develop too. I think that's important as well. You take a young guy like, for example, we mentioned him a few times, Robbie Martin. What he is now is not what he will be in a few years. And you see that same development from guys at lower levels. Does it always work? No. But it doesn't work for anybody. There's no guarantees. There's 5 stars that bust every year. There's elite transfers that just don't get it done.
Even in the NFL, there's top 5 draft picks that are busts, right?
Yeah. If this was a perfect formula, nobody would ever lose. Mm-hmm. So I think that what you have to do is trust the coaching staff. And like you said, they've given us no reason not to. Rich has done this before. We talked about that when they hired him. He's done this before. He's completely remade rosters and won. Yes, I understand it was in the Conference USA, but he's also won in the Big East. He's won in the Pac-12. He's won most places he's ever been. I think the guy knows what he's doing. And most of these players that they've added are going to help him. I mean, I think that they've gotten quite a few really good players at this point. Now we'll see how they translate. I can't sit here and guarantee you that, everybody
we thought the West Virginia secondary was going to perform a lot better than they did this past season, and they were full of transfers too. So we just really don't know until we know.
Yeah, and the thing here that I like above all else is all of these guys, most of these guys, not all, but most are really seasoned, experienced options. They've already done it. They've kind of done everything they can do at the level they're at. And now it's about showing it at a higher level. And I think that West Virginia is going to have some success with this transfer class. I mean, they're going to have to, clearly. And it's going to be a bulk of the roster. But there are some guys here that I think are really going to be able to step in and kind of take over immediate roles for West Virginia.
Let's transition here to the staff. I know last time we talked on this platform about the coaching staff, a lot of the big pieces were in place, such as Zach Alley. That was kind of the big name. Will Green, he was in place. But there's been some movement elsewhere. You've had your returners in terms of Chad Scott, Blaine Stewart. I think we talked about that last time. Travis Trickett, he's coming along to the West Virginia coaching staff.
Senior offensive assistant.
Noel Devine, he's coming along to the coaching staff.
If you list them, we're going to have a longer segment than the transfer segment.
There's no way I'm going to go through all of these.
Yeah, it's like 20-some guys. I do think that the one thing that is important here, though, is, we discussed, Rich discussed, everybody discussed the financial commitment he was going to make to his staff, and he's followed through with that. I mean, you have the number of
$5,445,000.
And that's not complete. That's with like 18 or 19 guys. I'm still getting contracts for some others, but I think that definitely the at least in that $5 million per year was the important term, because clearly they're going to exceed that. And a lot of support staff money too. Yeah. And $2.5 million there for that. Yeah. So I think it's telling that, Rich is really investing in getting kind of the guys that he wants, getting Zach Alley in place, getting a guy like Travis Trickett to come back, and you can go down the list. It's a staff that has a lot of familiarity either with West Virginia or Rodriguez himself, and I think that you got to get guys you trust. You're not going to bring back everybody from an old staff, but they did have 2 guys that are returning, and I think that you could argue those are probably the 2 guys you would pick, or at least close to it. So I think that overall things are going pretty good. I'm going to be happy personally when we stop getting a release every day announcing a new coach.
Every day, more like 3 a day.
Yeah, and they're all in place. But for the meantime, I think that West Virginia's done a good job putting this thing together.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of anxiety. I mean, I think we saw that on the board firsthand of fans just kind of wondering, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? When are they going to hit the grass? And over the last 10 or so days, things have started to fall into place. The pieces have started to come together, and now it's about crafting that puzzle. School starts up at WVU soon, right? The semester, I think, what, tomorrow maybe? I'm not sure. I don't go there
very
anymore.
soon. I think the
But it's
deadline
very
to
soon.
enroll
Is
is
like next week, I would
Yeah.
or so. Yeah. So stuff's going to have to move quickly for guys that are not here yet that are going to come here if they're going to be here for spring. I know a lot of the high school guys that are enrolling early. They're on campus. They've arrived, and I mean that's another thing, Keenan. That there's still numbers there. So there's a lot of new faces with this West Virginia football team. And it goes farther than the transfer portal. It goes into the high school ranks as well. And so that's just going to continue to develop as we get into the spring months here.
Yeah, if you do the math, 24 and 22, that's over half your football team is going to be new guys. That's right now. That number is going to shift and change. And
after the spring period and spring window,
even in the coming weeks, they'll add a few more guys as well. So, the thing is too is they can still add commitments even if guys can't enroll until after. All you got to do is get them signed and cross your fingers.
Yeah. So that'll do it for us on this episode of the WVSports.com podcast. We will be back sometime this week. Not going to nail down a date right now. Talking probably more basketball, I would assume, and probably a little more football news because that's where we are right now. Talking a lot of hoops and football, supplementing everything else. So I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by Keenan Cummings. If you made it this far, we appreciate you listening. And this was another episode of the WVSports.com podcast.